Never a dull moment in college football. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. If you don't like our content, smash that thumbs down button. Share the video with your family and your friends if you want to support this college football's rebel outpost with a donation. Hit the $sign where you make a comment, and I'll get to your super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome everybody into the studio, even the evil Badgers, even the Miami Hurricanes. Everybody is welcome into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to become a legend with your comments and with your phone calls later in the show. So we're going to talk about a couple things here. One is the college football playoff. The 12-team playoffs have been a great success. They have. I'm going to go through an article written by, a great article, I believe. You might think differently. A great article written by NBC's Nicole Auerbach. I get it. Some of you want this. Some of you want that. I finally got what I wanted in the college football playoff. I know changes are coming. Maybe not for next year. My heart is pumping good this morning because I believe for the most part, the 2025 playoffs are going to look exactly how they look like for 2024. The format and everything else. Because remember, to change it for this coming up year's playoffs, you got to have a unanimous decision among all the commissioners in Notre Dame. Maybe there's going to be a tweak. Maybe there's going to be an agreement on changing the seedings. But whatever happens in 2025 playoff format, it's going to look a lot like what we just went through. And I believe what we just went through was a huge success. Having said that, for me personally, this is just my opinion. Personally, it's all bittersweet. Because whatever changes is going to be made for 2026 and beyond, and there's going to be changes. In my opinion, in what we've heard, I mean, the SEC and the Big Ten did not accumulate this power, this governance power for the playoff format. They're not going to just sit on it. That's just not how the world works. So bittersweet times here, because 2026, everything is going to change. And what is really bittersweet about it is it doesn't even matter how big the success is for this coming year's playoffs. Like, the changes are going to be made for 2026, most likely by this September. At the very latest, this January, coming up January, the 2026 January. Like, whatever happens in next year's playoffs and how that makes the regular season so valuable and beautiful to watch, it's not going to have any impact. The only impact we have is for the next wave of decisions on the next college football playoffs is what we've just lived through. And I think what we just lived through was fantastic. Now, you all might have a different opinion on it. A lot of you do. But I think the regular season, this was the best regular season of college football in my lifetime. And I think the playoffs have been absolutely beautiful. Yes, there's been blowouts. Congratulations, there's blowouts everywhere. But what really has come to the forefront is you got a Notre Dame football team. They're in the championship game. They lost to Northern Illinois. They would not have been rated one of the top 4 teams at the end of the season. They would not have qualified for the playoffs in previous years. You got an Ohio State Buckeye team that stubbed their toe badly. In fact, they broke it off when they played Michigan. They did not win their conference. The Buckeyes would not have qualified in previous playoff seasons, and yet they're in the championship game. I think this has been a wonderful 12-team playoffs, and Nicole Auerbach says it a lot better than I could ever say it, and we're going to go through that article quickly in this monologue, and I want you all to put down your comments and thoughts in the comments section and give me a phone call later. Agree with Nicole Auerbach. Disagree with Nicole Auerbach. Agree with the fat guy from Minnesota. Disagree. Whatever you want to do, put it in the chat room, super chats. Give me a call on the phone later in the show. But we're not going to start with that monologue. We are going to start with this battle between Miami and Wisconsin. We're going to go through an article, just a quick article, just to give everybody an overview what this is all about. For Miami fans and Wisconsin fans, they've been going at this for a long time. And it did pierce the national landscape, this story. But again, a lot of people have not been paying attention to it. In my opinion, this story changed quite a bit. From Miami versus Wisconsin, now the Big Ten has come into play. The Big Ten made a statement, and we're going to go through that statement during the monologue. I am waiting as you see in the title of the screen. And maybe it will happen during our live show, so keep your head on a swivel. Keep your head on a swivel. If there's any breaking news on this story or other stories, let me know in the chat room or give me a phone call when we open up the phone lines later in the show. There's lots of different opinions on this story, and we are going to respect all opinions here at Peek Around the Corner. Please try to keep the personal shots, eliminate them if all possible in the chat room. If you want to go after somebody with a personal shot, go after the host of the show, but do not go after each other. Go ahead and disagree with each other. Let me say this out in the front because I have made this perfectly clear. If I haven't, I apologize, and let me make it clear now. I do not know what the evidence Wisconsin has on Miami. Don't know, haven't seen it. I do not know if the lawyer representing the student athlete has all the facts. I doubt it, but he seems to think he has. I believe, and I might be, I can have my opinions change, especially with more information if they do become available. I do believe Wisconsin erred on not letting this player Lucas go into the transfer portal. Now, I guess we don't even have a transfer portal. I'm going to get into all that later on. So I think Wisconsin erred. No question about it. I think they should have let Lucas, I think they should have allowed his name to go into the portal and then state their claims. Whatever claims they have. As for Miami, I'm hoping. And I want to know what you guys got to say in the chat room and with your phone calls. Is Miami going to say something? Miami hasn't said anything. As far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, we've got lawyers talking, representing the student athlete, as he should. We've got other lawyers piping in. We got people like me piping in who don't know what they're even talking about. We've got everybody piping in. But we don't have Miami saying anything yet. We have a statement from Wisconsin, which we're going to go through. They put it out last night. We have a statement from the Big Ten, which I believe changes the story. It changes it. The Big Ten is supporting Wisconsin strongly. So the Big Ten has seen what Wisconsin has seen. So now the other question is, will Miami speak on this? The institution. And the bigger question is, will Jim Phillips speak on this? What do you think? Put it down in the chat room, the super chats. Give me a phone call later in the show, because, and we're going to go through it together, the Big Ten names Miami in their statement, and they talk about how they put the word ACC down in their statement. Here's the thing. I've been doing my own poking and prodding on this story, and it hasn't really gotten anywhere. Because, again, I don't have any evidence placed. No one is showing me any evidence of anything. A lot of hearsay, a lot of Wisconsin's done this, Miami's done that. I don't have anything in front of me. We do know that the Big Ten has come out in support of Wisconsin. And the question is, and the title of the show is, will the ACC come out in strong support of Miami? The poking and the prodding that I've done is, the answer that I got back was the following. Everybody's looking for stability. The conference, the commissioners are looking for stability right now. Before the NCAA versus House settlement becomes official, if it does, they're looking for stability. That's the number one thing. There is a gentlewomen's agreement among everybody on these contracts, on these NIL contracts. You can make a great argument, and lawyers have, and they're a lot smarter than I am, that none of this is valid, none of this is legal, la 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 la. But there was a gentlewomen's agreement among all, that these NIL agreements, once the player has signed them, hands off. Hands off. That was the thought process among all these commissioners. Maybe it's not legal. Maybe the justice of having players, the players having all their rights, and maybe that supersedes what you believe as this gentlewomen's agreement. But that is what is different in this cycle. What I've been told to previous cycles, like there is a bridge that we're trying to get there to July, so then we can have some authority to make rules. Like, you remember when the NCAA just said there's no transfer portal? They're hoping that the House versus NCAA settlement, and I think they're wrong. I think that's going to get pillared, right? I think the House versus NCAA is just going to get that whole settlement. Most of it's going to get picked apart. But what they're hoping for is some authority, some decision authority to be able to build in a transfer portal from next January 2nd to January 12th. You see, they're planning on that some of this stuff gets sorted out, that we get some stability, that maybe they're wishing upon a star that there's a federal law carve out. I'm starting to wish for the same, even though I think the chances are slim to none. But I think the CBA is even slimmer at this point. You see, the commissioners have gotten together and they've said, look, we need to do this, and this as a bridge to get to this, and hopefully that is going to work. It probably won't. Every single one of these conferences, using their legal counsel, have developed a template for their universities to use to make to get a contract with these players, an NIL contract. And what I've been told is that's it. For this bridge, if a player, you've seen it with your own school. I'm sure you have seen it. I know if you are a Minnesota Golden Gopher fan, every single one of these players that are returning have made an announcement on their social media platform saying, I have signed blah, blah, blah. I have signed with Dinkytown Athletics, which is going to be part of the Minnesota Golden Gopher. They've signed contracts. Now, the question is, and I don't have evidence of this, the question is, what does a player need to do to get out of that contract? Because, again, this is not professionalized sports. And a player should be able to, a student athlete should be able to enroll at any school they want to, that freedom, just like any other student. So again, are we talking about, does Wisconsin get back compensation? What happens? I don't know. I do not know the answer. But what I really think, in what has been told to me, and I do not have the evidence, what I've been told to me is it's the tampering issue. The tampering issue of a person under NIL contract that was not supposed to happen during this bridge, as we walk across this bridge. And that is what has ticked off Wisconsin, and that has what has ticked off Big Ten, to the point where they were willing to put Miami's name in their statement, and they were willing to say, look, ACC, well, let's take a look at the statements. Before we go any further, let's take a look at the statements. This is Wisconsin's comment. And look, When Miami comes out with a statement, I'm going to be happy to put it up on the show whenever it happens. Hopefully it happens during this live show. Keep your head on a swivel. Keep your head on a swivel. Let me know if it happens. Breaking news, breaking news. Ryan Willie, in my opinion, Miami just kissed their chances of joining the Big Ten goodbye. Sorry, Rock, I know you're hoping for them to go to the Big Ten. I would not go that far. I am going to go, I'm going to talk about that subject later on. I do not think the doors have closed on Miami, just like I don't think the doors have closed on Florida State. And the Seminole fans that are watching the show, are going to watch the show later, know that I have been very truthful, very strong about Florida State's positioning among the Big Ten presidents. And they're trying to improve on that. And I think Miami may just do the same. I do not believe the doors have closed on Miami. But I do think there's a cost here. And I happen to think a lot of people disagree with me. Even Big Ten folks disagree with me. I believe the juice is definitely not worth the squeeze on what Miami's doing on this. Just my opinion. So I do not completely agree with Ryan Willie, but I do believe there is a cost to both Wisconsin and Miami on this. I do not think Wisconsin handled some of this correctly. But again, I'm hoping for Miami's sake that the ACC comes out and says something in support of Miami. And I hope for Miami's sake that Miami comes out and says something in support of Miami. That is what I'm waiting for. I get all the back and forth. There's now lawyers, Wisconsin lawyers taking shots. They're all back and forth. They're all a lot smarter than I am and blah, 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 blah. But I'm waiting for the comments coming out of the U of M, the University of Miami. I'm waiting for Jim Phillips to talk. Thank you, Ryan Willie, for your super chat. I do very much appreciate it. Thank you, sir, for your support, as always, to help us keep the lights on here at PATC. This is Wisconsin's comment. Statement from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. We are disappointed that Xavier Lucas has chosen to withdraw from the University of Wisconsin. He has been a valued member of our football program, and we are looking forward to helping him continue to grow as a student, a person, and a football player. On December 2nd, 2024, Xavier and Wisconsin Athletics entered into a binding 2-year NIL agreement, reflecting his strong commitment to continuing with the Wisconsin football program. We understand that he also executed a separate agreement with Varsity Collective. His agreement with Wisconsin Athletics included substantial financial compensation. Now, I do not know if he has received any of that substantial compensation. Wisconsin doesn't really make it clear, and I don't believe anything has come clear out of the Lucas camp, so to speak. Maybe they have said he hasn't received a dime, and if that is the case, I apologize, and let me know in the chat room or with your phone call. His agreement with Wisconsin Athletics included substantial financial compensation for Xavier. Under the terms of the agreement between Xavier and Wisconsin Athletics, it remains in effect and enforceable. So Wisconsin is arguing, look, this contract is not just about a gentleman's and a gentlewomen's agreement. It's not about a bridge to the House versus NCAA settlement. Wisconsin believes that this contract is enforceable. Now, Miami, that whole thing, it can go to the courts, but this is what Wisconsin believes. Or at least that this is what they're telling us that they believe. Badger student athletes who have signed these agreements expect Wisconsin Athletics to honor the terms. And I know firsthand that Minnesota players, the Gophers, have signed the basic exact contract. In turn, Wisconsin Athletics relies on the student athletes' representations in signing the agreements that they will do the same. A request to enter the transfer portal after understanding a request to enter the transfer portal after understanding of the agreement and explains the reason of not processing a transfer portal request under these circumstances. Well, that is where I believe Wisconsin erred. This is my opinion. I think they should have let the young gentleman enter the transfer portal. This may be the grounds in which Wisconsin, I don't think they should have went this way. But again, Wisconsin did it, and we'll see what the end results are. I think they should have let the young man go in the portal and then stake their claims. Under the transfer provision used by Xavier, again, this is statement from Wisconsin-Madison. Under the transfer position used by Xavier this past week, any contact between a student athlete enrolled at one institution and the football program to which they are transferring is prohibited per NCAA rules. We have credible information indicating impermissible contact between Xavier and the University of Miami football program. Personnel. Miami football program personnel. That is the PATC money shot of this. That is no good. Now you can say, well, rules are not rules and blah, blah, but this is the Big Ten's perception and the Big Ten's perception. This has happened before, and the Big Ten has backed other Big Ten schools up on this. Miami football program personnel. Wisconsin says they have credible information. Now, what exactly is that? I do not know. And we'll circle back to this when we get to the Big Ten statement. We have credible information indicating impermissible contact between Xavier and the University of Miami football program personnel prior to Xavier's request to enter the transfer portal. Direct interference with another institution's committed player and contractual interest. And that is the additional layer to all this. Never before in these other cycles of the portal and these other cycles of tampering or alleged tampering do we have a contractual layer to this. Now, many people say that contract doesn't mean diddly squat until the House versus NCAA settlement becomes official. And you may have, I don't know, you may have a very good argument. But Wisconsin believes that argument doesn't fly, and it sounds like the Big Ten doesn't agree with that as well. Plus, this interpersonal relationship between the commissioners and the conferences about having a gentleman's and gentleman's agreement. As I've said earlier, this is what we've been told here at Peek Around the Corner. At least until we get through the House versus NCAA settlement. Direct interference with another institution's committed player and contractual interest is prohibited by NCAA tampering rules and the law. There is another significant moment in the evolution of college athletics as we move forward toward a future state that will rely on direct contracting with student athletes, enforcing the parties' adherence to the contract obligations, and addressing improper interference by other institutions must be a priority. The system cannot work. It cannot work without an operational model that both establishes and enforces agreed upon rules and regulations and contractual terms that are binding on both institutions and the student athletes. In other words, Wisconsin was bound by this contract. They were going to pay this Lucas the compensation to him because they were contractually binded, and they believe it's the same for the player. We continue to review facts as they unfold in the matter and will evaluate all options going forward to determine the appropriate course of action. The appropriate course of action. Now, I happen to believe that that there's going to be some compensation given to Wisconsin. I think that's going to be the end result, but that is more of a guess and a speculation than anything else. That's just a guess on my part. Because, by the way, I know what I do know about these contracts is there is somewhat of a buyback provision. But I'm waiting for some more information before I go down that rabbit hole. Much like, a lot of these coaches have a buyout, right? The University of Minnesota football program just lost a defensive coordinator to Miami, right? He's under contract. And Miami offered him more money, took Corey Heatherman, and there was a $600,000 buyout. So Miami wrote Minnesota a $600,000 check, and now they've got Corey Heatherman. I think that is a part of a lot of these new contracts that we are seeing between the athletic program and the student athletes. This is the Big Ten statement. The Big Ten statement. Statement from the Big Ten Conference. The Big Ten Conference stands in full support of the University of University of Wisconsin, regarding the contractual agreement between student athlete Xavier Lucas and the Wisconsin football program. Let me repeat that. The Big Ten Conference stands in full support of the University of Wisconsin regarding the contractual agreement between student athlete Xavier Lucas and the Wisconsin football program. As student athletes become active participants in revenue sharing, it is critical that agreed to obligations be respected, honored, and enforced in light of current laws and association rules. Information suggesting tampering and contract interference in this case by the University of Miami is very troubling. These actions undermine the efforts of its own conference as the ACC continues to collaboration with other A4 conferences in developing a sustainable framework for college sports. This situation is just the latest example of the critical need of substantive governance reform. So, in the Big Ten statement, it says, in light of current laws and association rules, information suggesting tampering and contract interference, in this case by the University of Miami, so the Big Ten names the university, is very troubling. These actions undermine the efforts of its own conference, These actions undermine the efforts of its own conference. That is another part of the statement that rings out, in my opinion. I have a bunch of questions. Of course, number one is Miami going to put out a statement in support of Miami, in support of the football program? Wisconsin has put out a statement. Miami has not, as far as I know. Let me know if I'm wrong. Number two, is the ACC going to put out a statement in support of Miami? As far as I know, they haven't done so, and let me know if I'm wrong. And if it happens during the live show, let me know in the comments section or with the phone call. Now, this is where I disagree, respectively, with D5 Terps. Yeah, this one stop at in Miami. Schools have been tampering for years within the conference. With all due respect to D5 Terps, and a lot of people, most people, would agree with what D5 Terps just said. But that dog doesn't hunt. It definitely doesn't hunt anymore. Schools have been tampering for years. Number one, not all schools have been tampering. So just because you get caught tampering, if Miami did get caught, again, I don't have eyes to the evidence. But if your personnel is directly tampering with a student who did not enter the portal yet, that's against the rules, and some of those times it's been stopped. I keep talking about this example between Minnesota and Kansas State. It absolutely happened. Minnesota caught Kansas State red-handed, and Kansas State backed off Kai Thomas. This has happened multiple times, many times. It just doesn't come out in public. So that's number one. Number two, look, guys, we've got a contractual obligations as part of this. If Wisconsin is calling this in their statement an NIL agreement, what it really is a revenue sharing agreement. That's what these players are signing. They're basically signing a revenue sharing agreement. If they're signing with the Wisconsin athletic program, and that is in the statement, they're signing a revenue sharing agreement. So this is not this. This page of the story is different than all the other pages before. So the argument that everyone does it, no big deal, that dog just doesn't hunt. And even if you do think that dog still hunts, even if you do still think that dog hunts, Big Ten doesn't think it hunts. The Big Ten, and I reported this basically the week after it happened, months ago. The Big Ten talked to Oregon about their direct tampering when they entered into the Big Ten Conference. That happened. The Big Ten Conference do not want their institutions tampering. Now, again, the Big Ten institutions, some of them are probably guilty of tampering. And whoever is losing their players should make a stand. And you remember when UConn's head coach said, I'm not going to abide by this tampering of other schools when my guys haven't entered the portal, and everybody celebrated that the UConn's head football coach? Same thing here. But now most people are saying, well, it's happened before. Here's my thoughts on this. The Big Ten has such high integrity and values, but they stabbed their alliance partners in the back and they destroyed the pack. In no way, shape, and form am I putting the white hat on the Big Ten. There has been massive scandals within Big Ten institutions. Massive. That have hurt people, that have hurt student athletes, that have hurt children, and besides what happened in realignment. So I'm not sitting here putting a white hat on the Big Ten. I will say this, though. Every one of these conferences have their own form, their own template, and they've all made an agreement on this. And Miami was part of that. So we'll see what Miami says. We'll see what the ACC does if they come out in support of Miami. Going to the question of cost. A lot of people are saying that Wisconsin has hurt themselves tremendously because South Florida, the student athletes will not be recruited by Wisconsin. They will not allow. They're not going to. Wisconsin's not going to be able to get South Florida young men, young women, maybe in other sports, to join that athletic program because what they're doing to Xavier Lucas. And a lot of you might have a great point on that. I don't know how many athletes Wisconsin gets from South Florida for the football program. Again, I think Wisconsin should have let Xavier Lucas into the portal. But I also would tell you this. Besides the question of letting Xavier Lucas into the portal or not, every other, in my opinion, every other football program in the Big Ten would have acted the same way as Wisconsin. If they truly had direct evidence of personnel of a football program tampering with a football player of theirs before that football player went in the portal and that football player had just signed this newly created revenue sharing contract. There's not a football program in the Big Ten who would have not acted the same way other than letting Xavier Lucas into the portal. And I'm going to make a prediction here. This ain't going to be the last time. Like, there's going to be somebody else who has signed this contract. And they're going to want out of the contract. And that school that has that person, that student athlete in the contract, they're going to be looking for compensation back to them. Just like in every other, and in these professional sports, when you've got a player and a contract, you just can't jump to another team. Now, I say this, and it's one of the reasons why I'm worried about a CBA. These student athletes are not professional players, even though they're getting paid. Because I believe the student athlete has to be treated differently, because I don't think you can stop a student from enrolling and joining another university. In other words, again, I think Wisconsin should have let Xavier Lucas right in the portal right when he asked. As long as he met some obligations that are very low bar to jump over. So I don't think these contracts are going to be as binding as they are in the NFL, the NHL, the NBA, MLB. I don't think we're ever going to get to that point. That's why I think this college football and college athletics is a completely unique situation, not completely professional, and definitely not amateur. But these student athletes, when they sign these contracts going forward, if you want to say July everything changes, okay, then July everything changes. Whatever this date is in your mind, these student athletes who are signing these contracts, that athletic department is bound to you. They're going to pay you what they've told you they're going to pay you out of the revenue. And in return, you are binded by that contract. The whole idea that student athletes have 100% power over everything, that's not going to work either. Just like it did not work when the NCAA, without any real authority at all, when they thought they were in control of everything, and the court said, no, you are not. I'm going to get your phone calls and your statements after we go through the Nicole Auerbach again. Miami versus Wisconsin. Is it going to turn into the ACC versus the Big Ten? Do you think Miami's going to put out a statement anytime soon in defending Miami, the football program? Do you think the ACC, Jim Phillips, is going to put out a statement supporting the ACC? Whatever your thoughts on Miami versus Wisconsin, whatever your thoughts were middle of day yesterday, the story has changed because the Big Ten has brought themselves in support of Wisconsin. And I've talked about Wisconsin's cost to this. The possibility of losing South Florida as a recruiting ground for years to come. What the cost of Miami is, I think the potential cost, again, the juice is not worth the squeeze. Miami is considered a Big Ten expansion candidate, and the Florida State Seminole fan base don't agree with me, and I'm telling you they are. The Miami market, the university, the high quality education, the Big Ten schools, the Big Ten presidents voted Miami into AAU just a couple, 18 months ago. And but what the Big Ten, what the presidents will consider is, are you a good future partner for the conference? Are you a good future partner for the conference? What Brett McMurphy reported, and he reported out there in the open, it's what I was saying about 6 to 8 weeks before Brett McMurphy's report. It was absolutely true. Right now, Florida State is not considered a good partner for the Big Ten. Florida State acknowledges that, by the way. Michael Alford did not dispute it. Nobody disputed it. The president, they know it. They know what Brett McMurphy said about them is true from the perception of the Big Ten. And Florida State is working on that perception. I've been honest with the Seminole fans. I've been honest. And I'm also honest saying the door isn't completely shut on the Seminoles to the Big Ten. It's not. But they got work to do. And they're working on it. And when I was being honest to the Seminole fans, I had a lot of Miami Hurricane fans say, Greg, this is great. Seminoles are not a good partner. Miami would be, blah, blah, blah. I got to be honest. This is not good for Miami. When the Big Ten is putting out a statement that's adding Miami into the statement, the University of Miami, and then adding the ACC, kind of saying ACC, come on now. That's not good. That's not good for Miami. The cost, the juice is not worth the squeeze. When that player, Xavier Lucas, there should have been no, let's say there was personnel contact, direct personnel contact. That should not have been done. Number one. Number two, when Wisconsin found out about it, Wisconsin should have let Xavier Lucas into the portal, but then they should have claimed it to Miami. They should have said, look, we got the evidence. You should back off. And I don't think, we know that Wisconsin did not do that because they did not let the gentleman in the portal. So there was mistakes on both sides, obviously, in my opinion. A lot of people believe Wisconsin made no mistakes on it. A lot of people believe Miami, the justice, the social justice cause and all this is way more important than any invitation from a conference. And you have every right to feel that way. But I'm being honest as well when it comes to the cost and benefit analysis of this situation. And Xavier Lucas probably should not have signed that contract. So, anyways, before we get to your comments on this, let me go through the Nicole Auerbach incredible article in my belief, with just one game to go to close out the 2024-25 college football season. We've seen enough to call it. The inaugural 12-team college football playoff has been an undeniable success, and I 100% agree. And I know some of you disagree. Let me know in the chat room with your phone calls after we get through the monologue. There are minor issues that need to be addressed or tweaked, but the overall format change has been a net positive for the sport. More teams were in the playoff contention throughout the final month of the season than ever before, which meant more meaningful games played each Saturday down the stretch. Yes, even early in the season, the games were meaningful. College football still got its usual spirited debate about which team should get in the final spots in the bracket. And then there were 11 college football playoff games instead of 3 at the end of the season, which has been fantastic, with 4 of those games played in electric campus environments. Interest in the sport has been strong all season long, with 11 regular season games topping 9 million viewers. First round college football playoff games averaged 10.6 million viewers. The quarters averaged 16.9, and the semifinals, played on Thursday and Friday nights, averaged 19.2 million. With Monday's night national championship matchup featuring 2 of the bluest of the blue bloods in Notre Dame and Ohio State, the title game audience is also expected to be massive. It is also noteworthy that neither of the championship game participants is unbeaten. Notre Dame had an embarrassing loss to Northern Illinois in week 2, and then the Irish won 13 games in a row to get here. Ohio State lost its hated rival to end the regular season, but still knew it would qualify for the playoffs. The new format has allowed our team to grow and build throughout the season. Ohio State coach Ryan Day said, "As much as losses hurt, they really allow us coaches and players to take a hard look at the issues and get them addressed. And then it's about the business of getting them fixed as time goes on." I think that's really been the biggest thing that I've learned about this format, which I think has been great for our players, and I think it's great for college football. Ryan Day. College football playoff executive director Rich Clark agreed that the event had hit its marks. We played out the format that we laid out, and that was the commissioner's intent, for us to execute that as best we could, to get the best teams in it and let them play for the championship, Clark said. It went very well. There was some fear heading into the fall that the new format would diminish the regular season. PATC did not share that fear. We were very excited what it was going to do to the regular season. Everyone knew that teams didn't need to be unbeaten to make the bracket, so would the games feel less meaningful? Ask Notre Dame fans after the loss to Northern Illinois if it stung any less because they could not win out and make the playoffs. Or Ohio State fans after a 4th straight loss to Michigan, because of course the Buckeyes could still play for a national championship. In both college towns, the world still felt like it was ending. Beautiful writing by Nicole Auerbach. Beautiful writing by Nicole Auerbach. There was still a great deal of meaning, as it turns out. Clark said he thought the regular season was the best he's seen in his lifetime. I have echoed those statements here at PATC multiple times during the season. When you talk about games of significance, there were lots of them. It was very exciting, Clark said. The playoff, we believe, was really good cap off to that strong regular season. Clark said that he expects the conference commissioners who oversee the CFP to spend time this offseason examining the selection and seeding processes as well as the game sites. It is possible that there could be tweaks ahead of the 25-26 season, but it is far more likely that the substantial changes may not occur until the following season, when decisions will not require everybody agreeing. It doesn't need consensus. The sports power brokers expect to examine the value of conference championship games in the future as well, a separate but related topic. Several pundits have argued that the top 4 seed lines should not be reserved for conference champions in the future because that requirement caused this year's bracket to become so unbalanced. Number 3 seed Boise State, number 4 seed Arizona State were ranked 9th and 12th, respectively, by the playoff selection committee, so they should have been seated lower in the bracket had it matched the actual final rankings. That caused some of the most dangerous at-large teams, such as Notre Dame and Ohio State, to be seated lower than they should have been. And Oregon, the top overall seed, was knocked out by the Buckeyes in the quarterfinal round. The seeding issue might have popped up organically regardless, but it was exacerbated by conference realignment in recent years. The initial bracket was pitched before Texas and Oklahoma left the Big 12 for the SEC and before the Big 10 added 4 West Coast schools, including Oregon. The fact that the Big 10 and the SEC now gobble up more at-large spots because of the teams they added affects the relative strength of various conference champions. If at-large teams from 2 conferences are stronger than the conference champions from 2 or 3 other leagues, it affects the bracket structure. Still, the seeding issue was the only glaring problem with the new format. Everything else seemed to work well, particularly the first round games being played on campus, which received rave reviews, prompting the possibility of moving future quarterfinal games away from both sites to campuses as well. For the first time out, I don't think many of us are going to complain about this 12-team playoff, Texas coach Steve Sarkisian said. I can speak on behalf of us here at DKR. Hosting that first round game was electric. It was a tremendous atmosphere. Playing in 2 bowl games, from the Peach Bowl to the Cotton Bowl, an amazing opportunity for our players. Is this the exact right formula? I don't know. There are some other people that are going to have to look at this, but I think we're off to a good start. Steve Sarkisian. It's hard to argue with Sarkisian on that point. It may not be perfect, but college football never is. It's messy, it's complicated, it features more debate than just about any other sport on the planet. And thank you for that. PATC loves that. And finally in the article. But this is a postseason format that ensures the best teams in the country get to determine who is the actual best team in the country by playing it out on the field. They don't have to rely on polls or computer formula to determine the national champion. These teams get to determine it themselves round after round, and that is worth celebrating. Nicole Auerbach, NBC, a great article. She said it a lot better than I could have ever said it. And that is without doubt. Rock and Rant, I would call in, but it would be pointless. The hypocrisy is off the charts. Enjoy your dunking session, everyone. Thank you, Rock and Rant, for becoming a member for the 12th month. 1 year of Rock and Rant, listening to the fat guy in Minnesota, becoming a member of this program. Thank you, Rock and Rant, for your generosity. Thank you for your friendship. I do appreciate it. You are hereby knighted cloak and dagger. I would love for you to call in. The floor will be completely yours. The floor will be completely Rock and Rant's, just like anybody else who calls in. I agree with a lot of what Rock and Rant has said on this, but I do think the story changed quite a bit when Big Ten got involved. So I think Miami should get involved. I think the ACC should get involved. We'll see what happens. Thank you so much for having me a member of our program, Rock and Rant. Based Jiren, I apologize. I apologize if I got that name wrong. Thank you for your generosity and for your super chat. If Wisconsin actually paid him based off a model that doesn't exist yet, then they literally violated NIL rules and snitched on themselves. Thank you so much for the super chat, sir. Appreciate it. Appreciate it very much. A lot of people would agree with based Jiren on that. Because these contracts don't, a lot of people don't think they really have any binding because they don't really exist because there's no CBA and this NCAA House versus settlement is not official. You might be right on that. Wisconsin thinks differently. The Big Ten has their perception. I'm glad that Base has put out his perception. And now I'm hoping that Miami puts out their comment and the ACC puts out their comment, because I think that is going to be fascinating. Fascinating. Bill G. Holy smokes. 5 gifted memberships. Esmus Talks. Sam 8911. Amazing Blue Patrick. Baylor Bear. And the Michigan Wolverine. Marcus Williams. You've all been gifted a membership by Bill G. When you get some time, please say thank you to the generosity of Bill G. Unbelievable. Bill G, thanks once again, my man. You've helped us out so much at College Football YouTube channel. All the gifted memberships you have put out over the many months. I just want to tell you, Bill G, I appreciate it. And I know that people who watch our membership-only episodes, Early Peak Cloak and Dagger, appreciate you as well. Thank you, Bill G. Thank you for your incredible generosity. All of you are knighted officially. Cloak and Dagger. Cloak and Dagger. Ich bin ein Blitzkrieger. And I know I said that last one wrong. I apologize. Are NFL players and agents allowed to explore potential offers during their 5th-year option? I do not know. Good question. I do not know. Do not know. Don Scruggs. I feel that we hopped into a different parallel universe timeline after the NIL started. Everything I once knew is no longer true. Am I the only one? You're not the only one, Don. We need stability. We need stability. We need stability. So we're supposed to think that the Big Ten is innocent of tampering? No. Must think we have a sleeping mascot? No. I don't think that's the point at all. If the Big Ten, if you've got evidence of the Big Ten personnel of a football program is tampering with the Iowa State Cyclones, Iowa State is going to let it be known. Right? Right? Look, everybody cheered the UConn head coach for basically saying the same thing that the Big Ten just said. If you got evidence of tampering, now a lot of schools are confronting the other school on this. It's happening all the time. I'm telling you guys, it is. No, the Big Ten is not innocent of tampering. Not all schools tamper. If you've got proof, I would stake your claim. Wisconsin just did. Donald Duck, will any realignment happen around February 1st? I don't believe so. I've said that for months. But I also have said No, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole because I don't want to mix up the messaging. No, I do not believe so. No indication of that happening around February 1st. Steel Austin, 16-team playoff. All teams play first-round games on campus. 5 Big Ten, 5 SEC. Oh boy, ACC conference chat. I don't think so, Steel Austin. I don't know. That's mighty. I think that's a little bit. Don't think that's going to happen. Don't think that is going to happen. Immaculate Nicole's position likely comes from what she was told by the Big Ten. Well, I happen to agree with Nicole, and I wasn't told anything by the Big Ten. But I do agree with you, Nicole, NBC, Big Ten. Yeah, I agree, Rod Nix. Outstanding article. I don't think the Big Ten is going to blackball the Miami. I've said that, Stormy Cyclone. I don't think the door is shut. I don't think the door is shut on Miami. No way, no how. And I don't think it's shut on Florida State. But if you don't think this comes as a cost to Miami in the relationship, I tell you what, I'm going to say this one more time, and then we're going to open up the phone lines. And a lot of you are not going to like to hear it. Minnesota Golden Gopher fans are not going to like to hear it. Iowa Hawkeye fans are not going to like to hear it. Nebraska Cornhusker fans are not going to like to hear it. Northwestern, Rutgers, Maryland, Indiana, Purdue, you're not going to like to hear what I say. Miami fans are not going to like to hear what I say. Florida State fans are not going to like to hear what I say. But I'm going to say it because no one else is going to say it. I'm going to say it. I've said this before. You don't want to bleep around with Wisconsin. There it is. You do not want to bleep around with Wisconsin. I'm gonna explain how this works. Every Big Ten university has a vote when it comes to expansion, when it comes to a lot of internal rules in the Big Ten. There are factions. There are natural factions in the Big Ten, just like there is in the Big 12. Those factions are now being created in the Big 12, by the way, and some of that has to do with private equity. We'll get to all that during this 2025 year. Factions in the ACC. A lot of those factions are overlapping. There are new factions being created in the ACC with all what is going on in the ACC, which is chaos. And the SEC has those same factions. In fact, their factions are cut right down the middle. It's 8 teams versus the other 8 teams. 8 programs versus the other 8 programs. In and around scheduling that 9th conference game and everything else that goes on. It's 8 versus 8 in the SEC. In the Big Ten, the largest factions are this. Wisconsin and Michigan, that's one big faction. Ohio State on its own is another big faction. Penn State on its own is another big faction. Those are your factions. Wisconsin and Michigan, they're the highest 2 largest research universities. Now you got Washington coming in, and of course I'm not talking about Johns Hopkins right now. Okay? I'm gonna use the University of Minnesota as an example because I don't want to get any. A lot of people are going to be sensitive about what I'm going to say. So I'm going to go ahead and just have the Gopher fans be mad at me, okay? One of the reasons why I am the most unpopular college football YouTube channel in the country. I'm a Golden Gopher, and I have Gopher fans mad at me all the time. The University of Minnesota is a massive school. Massive. It has massive research, important research, medical research. I mean, and it's hubs. It's Rochester hub. It's an economic engine onto itself. And yet, after I've said all of that, Minnesota leans on, is more reliant on the University of Wisconsin-Madison research machine than your University of Madison research machine is reliant on Minnesota. That's how big and important Wisconsin is. And Michigan, the same. So Wisconsin and Michigan look at things a little bit differently. And we're all, when it comes to research dollars, are a little bit more, sometimes a lot more reliant on them than they are on us. Wisconsin and Michigan pulls a lot of weight. And guess what? They use it. They use this power. They do. I'm telling you, they do it all the time. They do it all the time. I can give you so many examples. I don't want to bore all of you, but I'm trying to tell you something here that no one else is going to tell you. When the creation of the Big Ten Hockey Conference, the Big Ten needed Minnesota, so it wasn't going to work. Minnesota's got all the money, all the hockey players, they got all the hockey sponsorship, and Wisconsin and Michigan leaned on Minnesota. Every single one has needed Michigan and Wisconsin's support. All of them. You know, I often say every single expansion, going back to Michigan State over Pittsburgh, I've often said every expansion, every single one of them, Penn State, Nebraska, Oregon, Washington, all of them, Minnesota has voted on the side that won. Well, the reason that Minnesota voted on the side that won is in every instance but one, they voted on the Wisconsin-Michigan side. The only exception is the Michigan State one, where Minnesota and Michigan went into a war, and Minnesota was barely able to get the Spartans over the finish line over the University of Pittsburgh. But since then, especially since then, Michigan and Wisconsin are a faction that you don't bleep with if you are a candidate if you are a school that wants to get to the Big Ten. Not only inside the Big Ten, but inside this private club called the AAU. I am not a Badger fan. I am a Minnesota Golden Gopher. I don't know what to tell you guys. You do not F with Wisconsin. You do not get on their bad side. If you are a program that's trying to become a Big Ten member. Having said all of that, Miami's not blackballed. I've said that from the beginning. The door is not, of course not. Of course not. The future, the health of the Big Ten Conference is more important than a spat between Miami and Wisconsin. But it is very important how this gets resolved. Okay? It's very important what happens next. We'll see what Miami says. We'll see if the ACC, what they say. And then we'll see if, at the end of Wisconsin's statement, Wisconsin, the very last paragraph, we continue to review facts as they unfold in this matter and will evaluate all options going forward to determine the appropriate course of action. This is just my speculation, but I think the course of action is let the young man play for the Miami Hurricanes and get some sort of nominal, something that you can say, we got compensation back. And then squash it. But I say that Complete speculation. I say that, and again, we need to see what Miami says, if they say anything at all. We need to see what ACC say, if anything at all. I think the ACC should probably back up Miami at this point. There's already a lot of chaos in the ACC. So anyways, let's get to your phone calls here. Let me know how wrong I got it once again. Expedition Greg, how about a PATC rendition on Hang On Sloopy if we win tomorrow night? Thank you for the super chat, Expedition Greg. Again, the Buckeyes are the favorites. If the Buckeyes were not the favorites, I would try to sing that song, Expedition Greg, but I gotta stay to the rules. I keep hammering on all these football programs that don't follow the rules. I gotta follow the rules. I cannot. Now, if the Notre Dame Fighting and Irish fan says, sing this song, here's a donation, if Notre Dame wins, then I'll do the best I can to sing that song, but I can't do it with the Buckeyes. I do apologize, Expedition Greg, but I gotta stick with the rules. Thank you. I cannot make an exception to the Buckeyes. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you so much, Expedition Greg, for everything you do for this program. You do a lot. You do a lot. You're giving me a lot of information on X and everything. I do appreciate it so much, Expedition Greg. Kerry Gold knows. Back about 1,520 years ago, Wisconsin said they wouldn't play Florida State because of the whole Indian and war chant thing. If they won't play us, I'm sure they won't vote for us to join the Big Ten. I have heard people talk about that. I have never read anything in which Wisconsin said that. If somebody has me some information about it, please send it to me. Again, if the Seminole Nation, and of course they are, complete support of Florida State, then there should be no problem with it. If Seminole Nation doesn't have a problem, and they do not, then Wisconsin should not have a problem with it. Nor should anybody else, in my opinion. I know there's an incredibly close relationship. They are tied. Florida State University and the Seminole Nation, Osceola. So I would not. But again, I let me know. Give me some information on Wisconsin saying that 1,520 years ago. Hopefully, Wisconsin has. Hopefully, they wake up to the reality. Again, it is so unlike me to defend the Wisconsin Badgers. I will tell you that. I will tell you. Okay, let's open up the phone lines. Thank you, Kerry Gold Knows, once again, for your incredible generosity. Like always, you've done so much for this program. Unbelievable, Kerry Gold Knows. Thank you so much, kind sir. Thank you. We are opening up the phone lines. Let me know how Nicole Arbach got everything wrong. Let me know how I got everything wrong. The phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. And again, if you're new to our channel, please subscribe to it. Hit the subscribe button and open up those notifications. We can come on live at any time. Like any time. Like if there's breaking news 4 hours from now, if Miami lays into Wisconsin, if Miami lays into the Big Ten, if Jim Phillips takes Tony Petitti out by the woodshed and beats them to a pulp, we're going to be carrying it live here at Peek Around the Corner. So make sure you have your notifications turned on.
From
Larry the GM.
Larry the GM, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Greg, for the show today. Hey, I'm on my way to watch a musical with my wife, so I won't be long. But
got it.
I thank you so much for explaining the politics of the Big Ten. Greg, my mom, I know I talked to you about my dad. My mom went to the University of Wisconsin, Greg. So,
Boo! Just kidding.
Yeah,
Just kidding.
I just dropped one more notch down on the Greg hierarchy, but yeah, Wisconsin's a huge, great research university, and us SEC fans may not really appreciate how much that the whole research angle dictates and drives the cohesiveness of the Big Ten conference and all that. So you did a great job of breaking that down. Greg, I think that's what, I mean, and most of the chat, I haven't watched it in the last 30 minutes or so, but most of the chat really seems to be like arguing this legal point that Miami may have been justified in this. Greg, I don't think that matters. I mean, okay, that matters. That matters maybe in a legal sense that they won't, they can stand on what they did. But from a big picture of like, is this school ever going to enter the Big Ten? That doesn't matter. Like, what matters is what you just talked about. Like, don't F with Wisconsin and don't F with Michigan. Like, if you wanted the Big Ten, that's a horrible place to start. If Wisconsin has a problem with what your actions are, maybe the right thing to do is just pick up the phone and call the president of Wisconsin and say, hey, we might have a misunderstanding of what happened here. What can we do to make this right before we go nuclear on each other? That's what I don't understand. Like, if you wanted the Big Ten, that's what you should do.
Yeah, it's just...
Am I wrong about that, Greg?
The juice ain't worth the squeeze. It just isn't. It's not even close. So, yeah, I agree. Now, again, I'm not going to go to the other extreme and say Miami's blackballed or there's no chance. Of course there's a chance. A lot of positives. Miami, they still have them. But if you're not looked upon as a good potential partner, I mean, I was honest with Florida State. I got to be honest with Miami. This is not where you want to have the perception. I mean, when you got the Big Ten Conference and that legal counsel and that cautious legal counsel, that very cautious legal counsel, when they put out the name University of Miami in their statement and then sort of gives a little bit of a nudge to the ACC, basically saying, come on, ACC, now you gotta do something here. That means something. That means something.
Well, Greg, and I think the other piece of this, like, Greg, you refer to this, the Big Ten and to the SEC really don't have to expand. I mean, the Big Ten wants Notre Dame, and the SEC probably wants North Carolina, but they're okay if they don't expand for the next 10 years. Like, they're just fine.
Yeah.
And until there's a financial disruptor that changes that picture, the juice isn't worth the squeeze as far as they're concerned. The Big Ten cares about this disruptor thing that you referenced with Florida State. And as Miami puts themselves on that list of disruptors, and Florida State is working to repair their perception, then Miami will fall behind Florida State as far as, like, who's attractive to the Big Ten.
That's why whatever happens next is real important, right?
Exactly.
What does Miami say? What does the ACC say? Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Greg, I mean, even if all the Miami legal scholars are correct, it doesn't matter. That's what I'm like, guys.
Yeah.
You have to understand. You want something from the Big Ten eventually, and you need to start acting like you don't have the power play here, even if you are legally correct. You need them you likely need, assuming the ACC goes down the path they appear to be going down, you need the Big Ten a billion times more than the Big Ten needs you. And I get all, Miami's a great market and all that. Like, okay, they can solve 80-90% of that by taking Florida State instead of you. Because if they take Notre Dame, they don't really care whether they take you or Florida State. And if Florida State turns out proves themselves to be a better partner for the Big Ten, then that's who they'll take. And I mean, I always feel like I'm way too blunt in these phone calls, Greg, but that's just who I am.
Yep. I enjoy them. I enjoy your phone calls. I enjoy your bluntness, even when you're taking me out in the woodshed. I do appreciate it, sir.
All right. Well, thank you, Greg, and it'll be interesting to hear the rest of the calls. But that's what I wanted to get my 2 cents in before you did, and thanks again, Greg.
You got it. Thank you, Larry GM, Mr. Longhorn. Beautiful call. Beautiful call, Mr. Longhorn.
Call from
Evil Badger.
Evil Badger is on the line. The floor is yours.
Hey, Greg, there's a couple things I want to clear up. As far as what Terry was mentioning about Wisconsin not scheduling Florida State. Back in the 80s, the Board of Regents decided that they would not schedule anybody as far as non-conference that has a Native American nickname.
Got it. Okay.
And as far as the Lucas thing,
is that still the policy?
I believe it's still a policy. They'll play a team in a bowl, but they will not schedule a team.
Got it.
That's not.
I would not agree with that policy at all. But go ahead, sir. That's just my opinion.
Oh, that's been the way. It's been the way since the 80s. Because the students back in the 80s wanted them to not schedule anybody, including Illinois, that had a Native American nickname.
Yep.
But Miami has really hurt themselves as far as trying to get into the Big Ten by messing with Wisconsin. And I honestly believe it's going to take longer than expected if they have any chance at all to get into the Big Ten now.
Yeah, I think a lot of it. How do I say this? I think a lot of it is this story is going to be determined. I think this story changed a lot with Big Ten statement, right? I think when they came out in full support of Wisconsin, and not only that, they came out and used the name Miami in this statement, right?
And I also believe the longer the ACC keeps quiet, the worse it's going to be for them trying to get an agreement with the Big Ten and SEC.
What was that?
I believe that the longer the ACC keeps quiet about this, it's going to cause an issue with the Big Ten and SEC.
I don't know. Maybe, but I'm not looking at that so much. I'm looking at the relationship. Like, if Miami feels that they're completely justified. Now, remember, we haven't heard from Miami yet, right? We haven't heard from Miami yet. We've only heard from the lawyer. But if Miami feels like completely justified and they've communicated to the ACC, just like Wisconsin has communicated to the Big Ten. Now we've got this Big Ten statement. They've come out, the Big Ten has come out in fully support of Wisconsin. And if Miami's expectations are that the ACC should come out with a statement in fully support of Miami, and if that doesn't happen, Well, now the relationship between Miami and the ACC, that is, I think, is the important relationship of this, not between Phillips and Petitti. But go ahead, sir.
Well, I'm upset with what's happened.
Yeah.
Because I think it's going to change everything in the college football, not only for Wisconsin but across the entire college football landscape.
Yeah, well, hopefully, I don't know how it's going to happen. I think we need a miracle shot to come on through, but we need some stability, either through a CBA, and I don't know how that would even possibly even begin, or a federal government carve-out, and I can't believe I'm saying that as well, but I think that's our only shot for the near term.
I'd be more in favor of federal carve-out than anything, because they need the antitrust exemption.
I think that is the minority position among college football fans, but I think that minority position is probably growing in favor. Like, I think more and more are going to go, please give us something, even though it's going to be completely not even close to, it's going to be largely imperfect. And what the number one thing I do not like about the federal government carve-out, the number one thing I do not like about it, it's inflexibility. Like, if there is something that comes down from on high, if Ted Cruz, Texas Republican, and Booker, Democrat, New Jersey, and Blumenthal, Democrat, Connecticut, and others are able to get a bipartisan carve-out for college football and college athletics, and it's signed by Donald Trump, if this actually happens, I do not like the inflexibility of it. Like with CBAs, things change all the time. The labor, the student athletes, they might have some real good arguments on a change that they should get because something changes in the landscape of sports or media or money or revenue or health, whatever it is. Something changes. CBAs are always being renegotiated. Collective bargain agreements are always being renegotiated. Labor says, this ain't working for us. Or ownership says, this ain't working for us. And they renegotiate. My biggest fear of a federal government carve-out is there's not going to be a flexibility of change. That's my biggest fear, among a whole bunch of other stuff. But go ahead, Ryan Willie.
All the professional leagues have an antitrust exemption, but they also have a CBA. Why wouldn't college football be able to do that?
Because these presidents don't want it. These presidents don't want it. So.
Well, contracts have to matter.
Well, it's tough. All right. Anything else, sir?
No, that's all, Greg. Thank you for
Ryan
taking my
Willie,
call.
The Evil Badger. Beautiful call. Call again, sir. Lorenzo Haynes. If Miami really did tamper, how can the ACC fully support them with what they've had to deal with as a conference with tampering?
From
Rick.
Rick, thanks for calling. Can you hold on for one minute, sir?
You bet.
I appreciate it. Great question, Lorenzo Haynes. Here is, I do not have an answer to that question, by the way, but I have there's a couple reasons why I want Miami to speak on this. One is it adds to the story. We get their perception. be interested to see what the ACC has to say, and it's interesting to see what Miami has to say. But one of the parts of the story that's bothering me a great deal is the only thing that is coming out of Miami is the lawyer. The lawyer. I mean, great. The lawyer's working for the student athlete, but the lawyer's not working for the University of Miami. The lawyer's not working for the ACC. Like, we don't even know what the lawyer, there might be parts of the story the lawyer doesn't even know. The lawyer has said, Miami, the student athlete's agent lawyer has said that Wisconsin hasn't given me this information or that. They haven't provided me information. Well, we know at this point that Wisconsin has provided the Big Ten the information, and the Big Ten's perception is, rightly or wrongly, the Big Ten's perception is, Wisconsin's got the goods here. But in Miami's side of the story should be spoken out, outside of the lawyer and everyone else that is jumping in. So if there is a defense, and I think there probably is a decent defense, and at least of some of what Wisconsin did not do, and maybe some of what they did not do in the aspect of not letting the Lucas go into the portal, like I think they should have. Whatever this defense is, should be spoken clearly. And we're not getting that. That is the major part of the story we're not getting. I would love if Miami said something officially, or not officially, say anything, or if the ACC said something, because their defense should be spoken out if there is one. I constitute the Miami lawyers' talks as a defense of Lucas, not as a defense of the University of Miami or anything related to the ACC. Go ahead, Rick. The floor is yours. Thanks for your call, sir. Appreciate it.
Yeah, the University of Miami is electing the right to remain silent.
Huh?
They've chosen to remain silent.
Well, at this point, right? I mean, I'm hoping
until
it
they
changes
aren't.
here in the next hour or something. But yeah,
They've elected to remain silent until they aren't.
Yeah. Correct.
And then the other thing is there are no contracts in Bushwood Country Club. Have you ever seen the movie Caddyshack?
Yes, many times, but my memories on movies are pretty weak. But yes, I've seen it. Yeah,
Bushwood Country Club was the golf course, and Judge Smales, better known as Wisconsin, didn't like people who were attending the club or wanting to get into the club, like Rodney Dangerfield in the University of Miami. So basically what happened is Miami slapped Wisconsin across the face and said, "What are you going to do?" And Wisconsin cried to their daddy, Tony Petiti, their big brother, who said, "Hey, what's going on here with my brother?" And exactly what has happened.
Okay.
What are you going to do?
Who's going to do what?
Exactly.
I don't know. The last part of Wisconsin's statement is, we are going to continue. Let me read it. It's just a short little sentence.
It's all talk. It doesn't matter.
We continue to
do
review
something.
facts as they unfold in this matter, and we'll evaluate all options going forward to determine the appropriate course of action. So.
Yeah. Blah, blah.
Yep.
What are you going to do?
I do not know. Maybe they go to court and try to get compensation back from Miami. I do not know. I do not know.
For breaking a gentleman's agreement,
or maybe breaking a contract that they think is legit.
Well, it's been called a gentleman's agreement now for a long time.
Well, no, I use that term as a gentleman's agreement among the commissioners. Wisconsin's not using that term. They're using this is a contract, a contractual contract that both sides had a commitment to.
Not if you don't cite some law.
If not what?
Not if you don't cite some law.
Okay.
Or regulation. You gotta have violated something. Right?
Sure. And Wisconsin hasn't taken Miami. They haven't done any action yet. So you do have a point.
Right. And that is my whole point. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of talk. Remember yesterday when we spoke and I told you how I saw this as a civil war? Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of battles in the Civil War. And sometimes your side wins and sometimes your side loses. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you both lose. You've got 100 dead and I've got 100 dead. Who won?
Yeah. Yeah.
You gotta pick your battles.
Yeah, and for right now, as we sit here, Wisconsin has chosen to pick this battle, and the Big Ten has chosen to pick this battle.
The Big Ten is defending Wisconsin.
But we don't know. We don't even know if Miami has chosen to pick this battle, and we don't know if the ACC has chosen to pick this battle.
Well, they haven't chosen to pick it because they haven't done anything but talk.
Well, they haven't even talked.
Well, they have in writing.
The Big Ten putting out a statement. The Big Ten putting out a statement is defending it. Defending Wisconsin.
The Big Ten putting out a statement and Wisconsin putting out a statement is talking.
Okay, but no, we would have to agree to disagree with that. It's like when Tony Petitti put out statements on Michigan. He was setting the table. He was saying, "Look, this is blah 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 blah," and people say, "Well, it's all talk. He's not going to do something," and he did something.
I agree. I 100% agree with you.
I think this is the first. I think the Big Ten is probably waiting to see what the ACC in Miami says.
Well, and they may say nothing.
Yep.
And wait to see what action, because it's all about what you do about it, mm-hmm. not what you talk about it. And they've been everybody from the NCAA to the conferences, and I don't care which conference you pick, to teams, and I don't care which team you pick, always talks. But it's only the action that matters. And Miami took action. They took the action of stealing Wisconsin's player and said, what are you going to do about it?
Miami's football program did.
Yeah.
The university hasn't spoken yet.
Right.
Yeah. So we'll see what we'll see what the university says, if anything at all.
Correct. Again.
But I think there's a cost to this. Without going to court.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So if you can put up with the cost of it or the potential cost of it, then go ahead. But I'm just telling you, I don't know how to say this any more clear. There are certain realities to this. And one of the realities is Wisconsin. If your goal is to join the Big Ten 5, 6, 7 years from now, You do not bleep with Wisconsin.
Oh, I couldn't agree more that is the case. And that's why I was using the analogy of the Big Ten being Brentwood Country Club.
Yeah.
And Wisconsin being Judge Smales, because you can't get into the country club without Smales' approval.
I mean, I would bet your money on this that Miami doesn't become AAU without Michigan and Wisconsin support. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Left out of the country club.
Yeah.
But maybe they already know that they can't get in, so they don't care. What about that?
Oh, or this was not an action by the University of Miami. This was an action by and I'm not saying, this was whatever this action was, be it correct or wrong or somewhere in between. This was the action by the Miami football program. So there's a separate situation here. I mean, the University of Miami president might be saying, "Well, what are we doing? What are we doing? don't you know that the ACC has this gentleman agreement or whatever? We don't know because the University of Miami hasn't spoken out on it yet." So
you're absolutely right, and that would be hilarious.
Yeah.
If Miami's chance of getting into the Big Ten was blown. Without even the university president and the directors having have any say in this action. Oh, mercy.
Yeah.
Hey, great show. Thanks.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Great call, Rick. Excellent call. Always great questions. Always does a great job, Rick, of making you think.
Call from
Immaculate.
Immaculate, can you hold on for a moment? I've gotten myself behind here.
Of course, man.
I do appreciate it. Stormy Cyclone, I'm staying tuned into your show. I think college sports could have more news than CNN this year. Thank you, Stormy Cyclone. I do appreciate your kind words and your super chat. Thank you so much for helping us keep the lights on. Stormy Cyclone, thank you very much for your generosity, your kindness. Thank you. Ryan Willie, silence says a lot. You look guilty. Ryan Willie, the evil badger. There's not many. Look, I've taken my shots on Wisconsin, even in today's show. I think they handled some of this wrong. I don't think they handled some of this correctly. But I think a lot of schools would have acted in accordance with Wisconsin if what Wisconsin says is true and what evidence they have. But again, I will say it again. Wisconsin has some institutional power, conference power, a lot of power that a lot of people don't understand outside of the Big Ten. Ryan Willie, thank you so much for your super chat. I do appreciate your kindness. Thank you so very much. Immaculate, thank you for your patience. The floor is yours.
Well, good to talk to you, Greg, on this. And I'm going to say up front, I think I might actually take a slightly different position than some might think. In terms of the actual situation between the school and the kid, I think Wisconsin was way ahead of themselves. I think they're probably not alone in doing this, but they're trying to get ahead of the situation. They're signing these MOUs or whatever they are to try and get these kids to kind of think that, okay, you're with us, you're going to sign this when the time comes when these happen. And, I don't think that those are necessarily binding. I could be wrong. I don't know. I'm not a legal expert on it, but that's the position being presented, is that those aren't binding. They're like when a kid signs to go to a school but then backs out of it because there's no actual enforceability to it. And I think the proof of that is in the pudding here, that Wisconsin is not actually pushing on Miami or on that kid for that deal. They're not pushing on him. They're pushing on Miami for tampering, which, allegedly. I don't know if it's true or not. They say they have the goods on that. That's a different situation. That's like saying, oh, we're going to take this to the NCAA, which, at this point in time, how much is that even a threat? So when I see the Big Ten getting involved and mentioning the ACC, this kind of starts to feel like a bigger situation than what's being presented here. Like, this is just, like your previous caller was talking about before, like, this is just the battlefield being chosen, but it's actually part of a bigger war. And it's not really Big Ten versus the ACC. It's things are about to start happening where, the A4 is going to be empowered. These guys are going to all be making decisions. This just kind of feels like positioning to me. Because really, that contract has very little to do with this. And you know what I mean? Like, for that kid to be lawyered up and everything, I don't know.
You might be right when it comes to the final results of all this.
Mm-hmm.
But I think from Wisconsin's perception and the Big Ten perception, that contract is a part of the story. I know, a lot of people think, well, that contract is worthless. So why are you making a big deal of it? I think Wisconsin thinks it is worth something, and I think Big Ten does as well. Now, are they correct or not? I do not know. If you look at the second paragraph, the statement from University of Wisconsin-Madison, if you look at the second paragraph, on December 2nd, 2024, Xavier and Wisconsin Athletics entered into a binding 2-year NIL agreement. I wish Wisconsin would have worded this differently. I have been told this is a revenue sharing agreement. On December 2nd, 2024, Xavier and Wisconsin Athletic entered into a binding 2-year NIL agreement reflecting a strong commitment to continuing with the Wisconsin football program. And then Wisconsin says, we understand that he also executed a separate agreement with the varsity collective. So the agreement I think Wisconsin is upset over is this revenue sharing contract. His agreement with Wisconsin Athletics includes substantial financial compensation for Xavier. Under the terms of the agreement between Xavier and Wisconsin Athletics, it remains in effect and enforceable. Now, maybe Wisconsin's completely incorrect. Maybe it's not binding, maybe it's not enforceable, and maybe this contract had stipulated that, look, we know that this thing is not going to become official until July, but if you sign this, you're saying that this is binding, right? I don't know, man, but all I know is Minnesota used the same contract. So pretty much everyone's using the same. This was a template. This is the Big Ten lawyers saying So I think these schools think this contract is binding. They might be all wrong, if it gets to the courts. But ACC also has a template. So I think maybe that's why the ACC might not have talking yet, because I don't know what angle they're going to take on this. But go ahead, sir. I just wanted to add that in there. Yeah.
And, I'm not saying like they're not binding or whatever. I'm saying timing matters.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that they're binding yet. And I think what they've done is they're getting ahead of themselves, because when this thing hits, they want to be ready to go. You don't want to start doing this work on that day.
Yeah.
You want to have this all lined out so when the day hits, it's all like, boom, it's like hitting the button and everything just goes. I think this kid got out before the button's pushed. And I think why Wisconsin, the Big Ten, are so into this is because not that the words are wrong, but remember, it's legalese. It's like the big bully on the block coming out and just saying, it's not necessarily about Miami, it's about everyone else. Don't come and do this. we're all going in the same route. The ACC is doing this too. If we're doing the same stuff, they're saying the ACC, you want us to start going and pulling your kids right now before this hits?
Yeah,
we'll do it.
And that gets back to my gentlewomen's agreement among everybody. That's what I was trying to.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what I'm saying. Like, this is a bigger battle than this little thing. This little thing, that kid is being used right now in this, and he put himself in the position of making that choice. But that's the unfortunate thing is, like, he's young and whatever he wants to move. I don't think there's a problem with him moving to Miami. He's just caught up in this moment.
Yeah.
And the Big Ten and Wisconsin are making an example of the situation, not against him or against players, but against other entities like Miami, like the ACC, saying, "Look, this could get real ugly right now."
Yeah.
Or we could all just be like, we know what's coming up. Let's just start to play by the same rules as if it's already happening. And then when it actually hits, then yes, everything becomes enforceable.
Can I ask you 2 questions?
Oh, yeah.
Do you think that 4 questions? I'm going from 2 to 4, Immaculate.
I'll try to remember them all.
Well, this is pretty simple. Number 1, do you think Miami is going to come out and say something, make a statement, public statement, yes or no? And if they do, when do you think it's going to happen? Do you think the ACC is going to come out with a public statement? If the answer is yes, when do you think this will happen?
Good questions. Right now, as I said in chat, I think the ACC's got their hands a little full right now. But I think that they're likely to want to try to get this thing taken care of behind the scenes. And then it would be like, if that happens, then the Big Ten and Wisconsin come back and say, solutions been, solved, settled.
And I think there's going to be a little bit of compensation going to Wisconsin. That's what I think.
Yeah, there'll be some type of agreement, and they'll have an NDA involved, and we won't know the full details. No, I don't think they want to come out and have a fight. I really don't. I think that, like what the Big Ten is doing, where you're like saying, hey, we want everyone to kind of play by these rules, even though it's in advance. I think most likely the ACC is probably feeling the same way. And like you said, this isn't a move done by Miami. This is a move done by the coaching staff.
Yeah, exactly.
So who knows what Miami's saying to him behind the scenes? I don't think it's going to become a big deal, and I think that we're going to have some things coming out where the media talking like this will kind of sort of go away. As hard as that might be to believe right now, I think this will just kind of go away. I think the point was made. I think the point was received, and I think the others are going to be like, yeah, we've got bigger fish to fry right now. So and that kind of ties into the other thing with, ESPN and ACC. As this gets closer to the day, ESPN's leverage gets stronger. So I think the ACC is probably fully focused on that and trying not to redirect people's attention within the ACC on what to deal with and what to be thinking about and what to tackle. This is nothing for them. This is like, yeah, we don't want to mess this whole thing up. And it's not just their own thing with ESPN. They're also involved with the CFP talks. So they've got 2 big fish on their plate. Like, I don't see them wanting to have some big public thing on that, because the ACC looks to be standing with the Big 12 and the Mountain West in that position, saying, and people are saying that this means nothing's going to happen. I think it means something is going to happen, because now they're playing the game right now. They're saying, no, we're not so sure. We don't want to lose our bye position and all that. Well, they know that's the leverage point with the Big Ten and SEC. I mean, when you see what happened to Oregon, it's pretty clear. They were flat first half, and they won the second half. Oregon 13, Ohio State 7 in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
They want the home game. I think it's dead clear, and I think they've even used their proxies like Dellinger and others to make that clear. So they're in this right now in the CFP. That's the main thing. And then house settlement and what other things. So I think we're going to get movement there. It's not going to be in the first one, but that means they're going to be constantly dealing with this stuff. It's the Big Ten has kind of picked a good time to this and say, no more of this. Let's all agree that we are going to treat this as if this is the thing that's happening, and that should tell us a lot about this house settlement. That it's probably agreed upon by parties behind the scenes, and they've a certain amount of time objectors to come in and make it look like, this could change things, but it's not. It's not going to change a thing. So, I mean, I think anyone who's objecting now, you're basically saying we're going to file suit afterwards because we know you're going to finalize this thing. We can read the tea leaves, so to speak. So yeah, I think these folks got a lot on their plate, Greg. I as much as we've got some people in the community that are real fired up over this, I would just say, guys, this is largely a nothing burger. Like, the statement was made, shot across the bow, and that's it.
Okay. All righty, Cade
That's
McNamara.
Oh, God. Dude, you're going to get me going on this one. Okay, real quick. Cade McNamara and Deacon Hill both go to FCS schools. Joey LaBasse, whom the coaches would not give a single shot to play in game, not one, gets picked up by an FBS school, Western Michigan, I do believe.
Mm-hmm.
Explain that one to me.
Yeah.
Explain how they can say he didn't deserve a single shot when other evaluators who, have no connection to this, say he was actually better than both of those guys. As an Iowa guy, that one kind of triggers me there a little bit because this is something that I was pointing out, and internally within the communities, people say it's kind of a garbage position, but I was like, just wait till you see where Cade goes, who picks him up, and that'll tell you the value and the evaluation of him and his talent and Deacon Hill's talent versus. So I'm just not happy to see how Ferentz did something wrong there, had to apologize for it to try to get ahead of it, and now it very much looks like even Deacon Hill being played instead of LaBasse was all about mitigating the risk to Cade losing his spot. Pretty ugly stuff, Greg.
Yeah, it is.
So
All right,
kind of
man,
sad to see at the end of the man.
Sure. I just wanted to hear it from
Yeah,
you.
you got it, man. I was waiting for that to come out and see where he got signed, and it was like, oh man, that was a real gut punch.
Yeah. All righty, sir.
All right,
Appreciate the call.
Absolutely, man. Good talking to you. We'll talk to you later.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Hot Guy. Mr. Hot Guy, immaculate. Couple things I want to point out. Today is January 19th, Sunday. Tomorrow is January 20th, Monday. There's a couple things going on January 20th. First of all, we've got the private equity in college sports hosted by John Wall Street. Remember that big old meeting with speakers, presentation, Cardinal and Mayor from the big old Capitol, Redbird Capital and Smash Capital, and Brett Yormark is going to be talking, and Graham Neff, the athletic director of Clemson, and Gloria Navarez and Tim Pernetti. Well, if there's any news on this, if now this is a closed door discussion, and you got to pay $1,200 to get into the building, to get into the venue, to get into this private equity college sports discussion. But if somebody paid, let's say somebody paid $1,200, a reporter or something, and if they're reporting on what was said here, they probably, I will be covering any reporting coming out of this discussion. I'm guessing very little is going to come out, but I'm going to keep my eyes open and my ears to the ground, and I'm going to be poking and prodding. I'm going to be asking people questions. And so just to give everybody a heads up, remember, this meeting is going on tomorrow on January 20th. But the big one, tomorrow night, the National College Football Championship game, the Ohio State Buckeyes versus the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Yes, PATC is going to be doing a watch party of the National College Football Championship game. So join us. I think we'll come on live about 7 o'clock Eastern, 7:30 Eastern, sometime around there. Watch party. Come join us. Put down your comments and thoughts in the chat room in real time as you watch the game at home, as we watch it here in the studio. We're going to have phone calls at halftime, or at least post-game. At least post-game after the game. The phone lines will be open. I'll be doing commentary, giving you my thoughts on the game in real time. Buckeyes and the Irish for it all, for everything, for the national championship. Ryan Day, Marcus Freeman, Riley Leonard, Mr. Howard. Holy smokes. It's going to be dramatic. It's going to be fun. Please join us tomorrow night. So if you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to our channel. Open up those notifications. Smash the like button if you've liked our content tonight. I do appreciate you all from coming on in. I want to thank especially Mr. Ryan Willie, Rockin' Rant, Base Jurin, Bill G, Expedition Greg, Carrie Gold Nose, and Stormy Cyclone for your generosity, for your donations, for your new memberships, for your gifted memberships. I want to thank you all helping us keep the lights on. I want to thank everybody for the great comments in the comments section, and for, again, the wonderful phone calls that we get from the PATC family. The phone calls is what fuels the show. I want to thank everybody for coming on in and sharing some of your Sunday afternoon here with PATC. Keep your head on a swivel. Keep your head on a swivel. If we get breaking news later on today, we're going to be opening up a live show, or maybe we do an episode. Keep your head on a swivel. If we don't do another live show today, we'll do a live show tomorrow. We're going to be doing a watch party tomorrow. So until next time, from all of us at College Football's Peek Around the Corner, to all of you, please y'all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.